Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. I've been super busy with Rogue Trader content. Of course, I've dropped a review and a bunch of other guides as well. Make sure you check that out if you haven't already. And consequently, there are a couple of pieces of gaming news that I'm a little bit late on talking about, but I definitely want to make up for lost time. Today, I want to circle back and talk about the Blood of the Dawnwalker gameplay footage that we received last week. It looks really interesting. I definitely have some thoughts and I'm curious about how my community feels about it. No question, I'll be playing this. So let's go ahead and walk through it, starting with what I like. So right off the bat, this footage gave me very strong Witcher vibes, and I absolutely love the Witcher series. So for me, that was a good thing. In fact, frankly, it was a great thing. From the architecture to the way people were dressed, the music, everything about it just strongly echoed what I remember from The Witcher. I feel like all three games are really strong, and the third one you can argue is one of the greatest games ever created. So in my opinion, that's really strong company, and of course it makes sense. Many of the Rebel Wolves developers were directly involved with creating the Witcher series, so a lot of that expertise has been used here. One way it's similar that I'm not completely sold on is the combat. I always thought the combat in the Witcher series was quite mediocre, and to be honest with you, looking at it in the footage here, I'm not convinced this is really going to be anything different. They talked about they're going to try to make it more tactical and directional as far as how you use your sword and make you feel like a real sword master. It all strongly reminds me of the way Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2 were sold, but they really went all out to make those systems work, and I just seriously doubt Blood of the Dawnwalker is going to be on that same level. So I'm expecting this will be yet another experience where the combat is just passable and you go through it because you're going through an amazing story and adventure and you want to see how it all ends. Now, another aspect of this footage that I really enjoyed is that it seems like it's providing us with finally another true authentic vampiric experience. I haven't played a real vampire game since Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. I know many of you have said that Vampire is actually a pretty decent game, but when it first came out, there were definitely a lot of negative reviews saying that from a stability and bug standpoint, it was a slog to get through. And I kind of never got past that, so I've never given it a chance. But I love the idea of playing as a vampire. I was hoping Baldur's Gate 3 would give us that experience with Astarion, and I definitely did not feel like that happened. So seems like this will finally, hopefully, scratch that itch that I've had for some time. There's a night and day cycle, and at night your vampiric abilities come to the forefront, so you're able to climb up walls and have some manner of telepathy, and you can fight with your claws and all sorts of interesting different things, along with being able to actually communicate with vampires, and it appears potentially bring them onto your side. So definitely seems like an all-out fantasy experience where you get to play as a half vampire. I'm absolutely looking forward to it. There is a skill tree where you're going to be able to develop vampiric abilities along with potentially human ones as well. And there's a system of you needing to drink blood in order to keep yourself from giving in to a bestial rage, and also powering your ability to use different hexes and things that you get from your vampiric blood. Seems like there's also a system where if you go too long without feeding, you could give into that rage, kill somebody that you didn't mean to, things of that nature. So really curious how all that works. I wonder if there will be some advantages to just giving into the beast and walking around like that for long periods of time. I could easily see myself doing that as maybe my second or third playthrough. Cool stuff. Speaking of second and third playthroughs, another thing I really like about this preview is it seems to hammer home that this game is going to be all about player control and subsequently finally, replayability. There is no main quest. It's just a main objective. You are trying to save your family from the vampire leader who controls this area. And how you do that is based on what relationships you develop, what information you're able to gain, what quest you have completed over the course of, I believe it's 30 days you have to get as strong and solid as possible before you finally have to make a run and try to help your family. So it seems like that creates a ton of variety. In addition to this, once again, there's a day-night cycle, and some of your quests can change dramatically based on whether you choose to tackle it during the day or during the night. It's going to be fascinating to see what sort of combinations people are able to do. I can't wait to see what kind of speed runs people are able to make. Supposedly, it is possible for you to go ahead and just walk right in and try to do the objective at the beginning of the game. It's going to be really cool to see what kind of speed runs people are able to put together, and I'm really hoping there's going to be like an 100% completion option as well, where if you do things in the exact right order, you're able to literally do all of the quest and the content. Regardless, seems like there'll be a lot of variety in what type of playthrough people have, and that should be really, really nice to see. And then the last thing I'll mention is the hint at a broader fantasy world. They talked about it's not just vampires who have come to the forefront. There are other mythic fantasy creatures who now feel more confident, and they actually talked about this when they first announced the game. I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about how are they going to flesh out the world more and make us feel connected to all of these different cultures and folklores and things of that nature. And I hope that they really go all out, and that the majority of the adventure is not just us talking to a bunch of humans, but that we get a wide range of really interesting creatures and characters that we're going to be able to interact with. They also mentioned before that we could potentially have companions, not, I assume, the kind of companions that follow you around everywhere, but again, those people who are closely aligned to us and will potentially help with the final run to save our family. And so I'm curious to see if some of these mythical creatures are ones who we can bring onto their side. I've actually always been a bigger fan of werewolves instead of vampires, so I'm really hoping that there are some werewolves somewhere in the area that we can align with that will help us destroy vampires. We'll see. So once again, everything looks fantastic. There are a couple of things that kind of give me pause in this footage. Nothing that's going to stop me from playing this. I'm definitely dead set at this point. I'm going to play this. I'm going to check it out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Even if I don't like all aspects of it, I'm expecting to have a good time. But there are a couple of things I feel like should be called out. I've talked before about the time limit and how I'm not particularly a big fan of time limits in my game. And I feel like this footage kind of hammers home the problem, right? Because he goes into this cathedral and he talks to this priest, and the priest says, well, hey, why don't you give me your confession? And there's a little hourglass symbol next to your option to say, yes, I'd like to give my confession. So basically it would use up some of the time that you have, right? And my assumption is time is a very limited resource, that it's extremely difficult, if it's even possible, for you to finish all the content in the time allotted. So you have to be very careful about what it is you decide to do. And so to me, even something as, quote unquote simple as having a conversation with the priest about some of the things that are weighing on me, I'm not going to want to do that, because I'm going to feel like, man, there's probably this other amazing quest right around the corner that's really going to give me more pertinent information about the end game that I'm going to miss out on potentially by doing this. I feel like I'm probably not going to like that. I feel like that's going to be a weight on me during my playthrough. Maybe it doesn't work out that way. In my first playthrough, I've decided I'm just gonna go with the flow. Just whatever seems interesting, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it, just to see how the game feels by the end. If I feel like I've kind of gotten pigeonholed into something, or I feel kind of screwed over, if I'm like, you know what, you can play this in a more laid back way and it'll go okay. But just looking at the footage, it kind of feels like I'm always going to be stressing over what I will and will not do. And then the other thing that I'm a little bit hesitant on, again, I love the Witcher series. I had a great time with the Witcher series, and seeing a lot of the similarities between this game and the Witcher was fantastic. But one area where I did feel like the Witcher came up short was in the reactivity in the towns, right? It gave you these wide open towns that were fully realized from a landscape standpoint. Like, you walk around and it's clear there's a ton of people who live here, all that kind of stuff, right? But from a reactivity standpoint, and from the standpoint of feeling like you can actually interact with a lot of the things happening in these towns, Witcher was definitely always lackluster. You can't enter most of the buildings. Like, most of it is set dressing besides the specific quests that you can get involved in. And in this footage, they do a lot to try to put a bunch of things around you while you're walking around, these conversations going on, these interactions occurring with. And I wonder how much of this is just set dressing that the player cannot really interact with, get involved with, or have a role in. It's just things that you kind of see that are supposed to make the town feel more alive, but it doesn't really come all the way around. You know, I don't know if this is a criticism that other people have regarding The Witcher. I've never actually looked at a lot of reviews for The Witcher games, but it's a way that I've always felt, and it definitely was reinforced to some degree by looking at that footage. So I'll be interested in hearing you all's thoughts on this as well. Anyway, that's my thoughts. That's where I stand. Again, I think this is very exciting. I think it's really, really cool what they're doing. I've mentioned before, they're taking a very, very unique view and look at vampire lore. So they're doing it differently than what you've probably seen in other properties. And I think that's going to be really, really interesting. So no question, this will be a day one purchase and play for me. And I'm expecting to have a great time. Hope all of you do as well. I'll continue to cover this. Let me know if there's any additional content for this game you want to see. If you haven't already, leave me a like, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you don't miss any other content. Hit that bell. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.